Hello, welcome this Monday morning. We are Scarlet and Rage Podcast. Thank you for taking the time to watch. And thank all of you that have taken the time to like and subscribe over the last couple of weeks. And I would certainly appreciate it if you would go ahead and hit that subscribe button now. If you've been watching but maybe haven't done that yet, certainly would appreciate it. And hit the bell so you know that we are going live. We have got, I believe, a interesting stream of topics to talk about, even though we're kind of in a lull between, the bowl practices and actually getting to see this Buckeye team here in a little bit. But we're going to get into a little bit of Buckeye basketball. We are going to talk about the Buckeye quarterback situation with Kienholz, Brown, possibly a transfer being brought in out of the portal to add to that quarterback room. We're also going to talk about the transfer portal in general, and who knows, we may get into a few other subjects. But before we get into any of that, Jay, how are you doing? Have you had a good weekend? So, well, the weekend's basically over now. So did you have a good weekend?
You know what, Michael? Before I get into my weekend, I just want to point out that we have been reading your comments at the bottom of this page. I actually find them quite hilarious a lot of times. But I just want to make it very clear, Michael and I both discussed this, but we really don't care if you like our message or not. We are going to still keep doing what we are doing because we feel that the mainstream media of Ohio State athletics is failing the average fan who doesn't pay close attention to this stuff. So you can talk all the shit you want about us and we don't care. We actually love it, actually. It makes us stronger and gives us something to laugh at, gives us great talking points as well. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. Michael, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I think those Buckeye fans that have chimed in that are maybe see some of the points we're making. Thank you, guys. Glad you've got an outlet to come and talk about something other than, just the sunshine pumping. When good things happen, obviously we want good things to happen, but you can also discuss some of the negative aspects. And so for some people, they don't like that. And if you don't, that's fine. There's plenty of other places where you can get basically 95% positive. We're going to try to be balanced with it. If it's a good season, we'll stay more positive. If it's a season where there's a little bit more negative stuff going on, then unfortunately that's just kind of what it is. Anyhow, if you don't like it, then obviously that is okay. So yeah, that's how I feel about that, Jay.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, man. But you know what? We enjoy that you actually listened at all. So there.
Yeah,
that's all I'm going to say about that. My weekend was solid. Actually, before I get into what I did over the weekend, which actually ties directly into this, this is the Christmas season now, and I guess the question I have for the audience is The Nightmare Before Christmas a Halloween movie or a Christmas movie?
Never seen it, Jay.
Michael, man, you gotta get on your movie watching. You gotta get up to date on your movie watching, man. Yeah. I know a lot of people think that's like a classic, and I literally just watched it first time since I was.
Are you talking about is the Tim Burton movie?
Yes. With
the
skeleton guy.
Yeah. I have seen that, but gosh, it's been so long. I don't even remember anything
30
about
years.
It.
It's been like 30 years since I've freaking seen that movie. So yeah, I totally forgot. The wife remembered more than I did.
So you just watched that or something?
I literally just watched it.
Okay.
It was okay. I was like, well, let's watch this because, I was really unsure. I mean, I guess you can, like, in my opinion, classify it as both a Halloween or a Christmas movie. And it had really some strong Batman Returns type vibes to it, especially like the theme music of like making Christmas and stuff. And people seeing Batman Returns, I always watch that around Christmas. So yeah, I do. I'm a huge Batman guy, so it is what it is. But back to the weekend though, before we veer off talking about movies. Michael, I know I said I really wasn't gonna talk about this much like a month ago, but I have been keeping an eye on Ohio State basketball from like 10,000 feet.
You couldn't stay away. You said you were going to stay away, and you can't stay away. You're a junkie.
I'm a fan, man. I mean, deep down in my core, I love them.
Well,
And,
they've probably upset you as of late then, because while I don't follow basketball in any capacity very much, I did hear that there was, not a real good game here recently.
So I was keeping an eye on Ohio State basketball. I was actually, they were all right. So they were playing better as a team lately. I'm sure the people on here that follow Ohio State basketball are aware. Even though they're still coached horribly and showed some major red flags in the second half of the Minnesota basketball game the other night, I decided to go forth and plan a tentative Atlanta trip to go see them next Saturday, because that is a drivable distance for me to go see Ohio State. And I was like, well, it's kind of cool to see them come down south. I might go see them. And what do you know? I saw that they were playing Penn State last night. I was like, we should probably win that game decisively. Penn State's 4-5, a pretty bad team.
Yeah.
They had lost 5 in a row, losing record, as I just said.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at a Christmas party. I saw we were starting to pull away in the second half, climbing to as much of an 18-point lead. And so I'm like, okay, this is, I'm thinking in my mind, oh man, we're about to have fun in Atlanta, watch some good basketball, because there's going to be 2 games. It was going to be Ohio State, UCLA, and then Kentucky and North Carolina, and enjoy the city, enjoy the downtown Atlanta. Mm-hmm. Well, what happened next? Ohio State ended up blowing an 18-point lead and losing to Penn State. And I'm like, what the F is going on here? A garbage Penn State team. They're a terrible team, man. No words. And that ruined it. It ruined everything, because now I'm like, I'm not going to Atlanta. Not only did Ohio State ruin my night last night, where I was at a Christmas party, but they also ruined any fun plans my wife and I would have had next weekend.
Well, so you don't think that they can recover? I mean, I know that's a bad loss, and that's a Big Ten loss. So that's a loss that, like, oh my gosh, like you just blew a conference game like that. But I mean, do you think there's a chance they can recover and be a team that could make a run to the Sweet 16? I mean, is that possible in your eyes?
Hell no.
No?
They don't play any defense. Not at all. Okay. They don't play any defense. They don't do the fundamentals of basketball, man. Although I really wasn't watching the game in depth like that, because, like I said, I was kind of busy. I couldn't really get the game up on my phone. I'm honestly done blaming Holtman for this. He is what he is. I've gone on rants about Holtman, but he's a terrible lame duck coach who obviously cannot coach basketball. I've gone over this. Gene Smith continues to be the biggest problem with Ohio State athletics. Got a tongue twister there. I absolutely hate the guy. Not only is he a terrible athletic director, but he's a garbage socialist promoting equity on 97.1 The Fan, as I've said before. One day we will do a podcast, probably in the off season, about the monstrosity that is or was Gene Smith, because he'll probably be gone when we go into that. But I will, before I go about Ohio State basketball and end this topic, when I went on my rant about a month ago about this team, I mentioned that the team they had lost to at the time, Texas A&M, a team, they also lost to at home, that they weren't very good. I said Texas A&M's not all that good. Well, that Texas A&M team now has 3 losses on the season, including a home loss today to Memphis. So that's not very good. So yeah, I was right about that.
I think that I'm gonna have to take your word for all of it, because I don't follow basketball. I may tune in a little bit in the next come about January. I may tune into a few basketball games, but I think the moral of the story is we will continue to give you basketball updates as much as Jay might say otherwise, because he's going to keep following the Buckeye basketball
man, dude, there was a point last
regardless.
year I really dropped them. Like, I was not following them for a while. Yeah. They finished under 500 last year. The only thing worse than Ohio State basketball is, number one, Ohio State baseball. But my professional basketball team, Michael, I actually do have a professional basketball team. The Detroit Pistons. That's correct.
Oh.
So all my Michigan fans out there, can you help me figure out why the Detroit Pistons are probably the worst franchise in American sports? Because we are. And why am I a Detroit Pistons fan, you ask? Well, I'll tell you why. Chauncey Billups, probably my favorite player, him and Allen Iverson, favorite player of all time, man. I mean, I don't know what it was about that championship that we won in like 2003 and stuff against the Lakers when we like beat them in 5 games, but that was amazing. Those Piston teams were like the most fun I've ever like enjoyed watching basketball consistently. They just did everything right. Larry Brown is the GOAT.
Tayshaun Prince was on that team.
Yeah, Tayshaun. All right, well, I can still name the starting 5. You want me to name the starting 5?
Go ahead.
I can still name that starting 5. So, yeah, Chauncey Billups at the 1, Rip Hamilton at the 2, Tayshaun at the 3, Rasheed Wallace at the 4, Ben Wallace at the 5.
There we go. Yeah, that was a good team. Tough team.
Yeah, man. I mean, they played some of the best defense I've ever seen. Should have beaten the Spurs the next year, too. They made it to 6 straight Eastern Conference Finals, by the way.
Yeah.
And then since then, we have not won a playoff game since 2008.
Rough times.
We have not won an effing playoff game since 2008. So Michigan fans out there who are also Detroit Piston fans, I tried to ask a question on a forum once, like, what happened? Like, what effing happened to this team? And the only conclusion it can come to is that the owner died in like 2004. The guy who built them up. I forget his name.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anywho, Michael, on to the Buckeyes, as we know. I know you wanted to talk about some transfer portal stuff. What are your thoughts on the quarterback situation in our pursuit of a potential quarterback?
Well, here's the question that I don't think has been answered yet. Does Ryan Day definitively want a transfer quarterback? And I think that I don't think any of us really know the answer to that. There's rumors, there's speculations. I'm sure there obviously are people that know the answer to that. I'm just saying we don't know the answer to that. And I think for good reason, because if there is somebody out there that Day is eyeing and he's not able to obtain him, I don't think Ryan Day really wants that to be overly public. And I can't necessarily blame him for that with what kind of has happened here with Kyle McCord, because if he's going out to look for somebody in the portal, that means he's still, maybe not 100% feels great about Kienholz or Brown. And if that person tells him no, then that's kind of another spot on his quarterback record. And so I'll be honest, I'm not that excited about the quarterbacks in the portal. I could be wrong. I could be missing something. The kid out at Washington State, I've just not watched him play, so I don't have an opinion on him. Riley Leonard, I mean, yeah, I guess maybe. He certainly is a good athlete. I like his running ability, but honestly, the only thing I think of when I think of Riley Leonard is him taking off and running the football. I just, I watched him play a couple of games, don't remember a whole lot about his passing. I went and looked up his passing stats. I know that he was hurt for, 4 or 5 games, but he had 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. And so, I don't know. There's a part of me that almost would just like to see the quarterback room roll with Devin Brown, Kienholz, and Air Nolan. And I know we're going to discuss the ones that are actually here next. But as far as getting a transfer, what are your thoughts on it? Are you pumped on somebody? Are you dialed in on a particular guy or what?
There is only one guy that I would actually be dialed in on, but he's not in the transfer portal. That would be Tulane quarterback Michael Pratt. That guy, I watched his film. I watched his highlights just to see like what he presents as a player, and he's the complete package. He can run well. He can throw well. He can pretty much do it all. I understand he didn't play against the best competition and stuff, but Tulane was still a very good team. He's a complete package, man. If he enters,
I guess he
portal,
beat Lincoln Riley and USC in the bowl game last year, right? Was he starting that game?
Yeah, I think he was. I don't know why he wouldn't have been. I do remember watching that game, and Tulane ripped USC and put up
Yeah.
a lot of yards and a lot of points. But the guy's just really good. I mean, Tulane only had 2 losses on the year, and one of the losses to Ole Miss they had. He didn't play in that game, so that's why Ole Miss won. Makes me believe that if he would have played, they would have probably beat Ole Miss. So,
What do you think? You got any thoughts on the kid from Toledo? Did you watch him play at all this year?
yeah, he doesn't throw well enough. I mean, he runs well, but he's not like a super athlete.
Mm.
Like he's not Jaden Daniels from LSU. He doesn't run like that.
So you think he's more of an upgrade for maybe like an Illinois or maybe a Cincinnati or that level of program or what?
I would say he's not an Ohio State caliber quarterback, but I think he's probably higher than the programs you just listed.
Oh,
I
so
would
you,
not,
so you think he's definitely a Power Five type guy that there's going to be plenty of demand for him in the Power Five.
I wouldn't say plenty of demand. There is going to be demand, though. I wouldn't say plenty. Like there isn't going to be the same for Cameron Ward, who you just mentioned,
Yeah,
or the Duke quarterback. What the hell? Riley Leonard,
yeah,
who's apparently probably going to go to Notre Dame anyway.
yeah.
Both of those quarterbacks are solid. Riley Leonard doesn't throw well enough for me. Cameron Ward is too inconsistent if you actually really watch him. I know he put up some stats at times, but um, he's just not he's not a surefire like dude like at quarterback like Michael Pratt. Like Michael Pratt, I mean, Ryan Day has that CJ Stroud card and said, "Hey, look what I developed CJ Stroud into." Ryan Day does have that going for him.
Mhm.
You can be like, "Listen, he's become the number 2 overall pick, and right now he's playing like a top 5 quarterback in the NFL." So
Justin Fields played well today. Justin Fields had a nice game, and the Bears beat the Lions. I watched
I
it.
did see. Oh, you watched that? You didn't
Yeah.
watch the Bengals?
No, I don't watch the Bengals right now that Burrow is out. It's too painful. I know that they've won the last 2 games in a row, but
Yeah.
I know that they'll get something good. Let me just tell you what they're going to do. They're
Mhm.
going to screw up their pick, and then they're still not going to get in the playoffs. So they're going to win enough to screw up their pick. They'll be like 9-8, 8-9, something like that. And then not end up going anywhere anyway. So no, I'm not tuning in to watch that for the rest of the season. But I did watch Justin Fields and the Bears today because I do like the Bears. I'm kind of a secondary. The Bears are a team that I like, and so I would love to see Fields be able to do well with them. Just hasn't happened, but he played a nice game today. So Ryan Day has Justin Fields as well. I mean, not a superstar in the NFL yet at this point, but certainly not a guy that his career's over. There's still hope that he's going to turn into a above average NFL starter. So I mean, Day has some things to sell quarterbacks, but my question is, a Riley Leonard or a Cam Ward or some of these bigger names out of the portal, if you're going to bring them to Ohio State, they're pretty much going to expect to start. Like you're not going to bring in one of these guys
Mhm.
and be like, okay, now you have to compete with Brown and Kienholz. Like, first off, maybe Brown leaves if they bring in one of these guys. Maybe that doesn't matter. I don't know. But if you bring in one of these guys, they're going to want to start. So unless you're convinced that they're an absolute starter, I don't feel like you can do that and bring one of them in. And so we'll see how it plays out. But I'm not picking up necessarily from Ryan Day that he's definitely there, that he thinks one of these guys is definitively the starter. So I think he's flirting with some of these options, but I'm not convinced that he's like really gone all in on any of them. But I could be wrong.
No, I mean the evidence is there that he hasn't. But I will say this, and I think this is pretty obvious for somebody. I mean, you don't even have to read anything about inside news or anything, but I honestly don't see Ohio State going all in for a quarterback unless number one, Michael Pratt answers the transfer portal. I don't even know when Tulane's bowl game is. So whenever their bowl game's over and you get information on that, I think Ryan Day and Ohio State would actually go after him if he decides to enter the transfer portal versus go to the NFL. But I don't see them going after a quarterback unless that happens until after the bowl game, because Ohio State needs to find out what they have at quarterback on their own team
Yeah.
before making any concrete decisions there.
So
I believe Kienholz is going to need to play some against Missouri.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about what they have. I mean, obviously, as a fan's perspective, there's only so much that we can possibly know because we're not let into practice. You know, we can only see what we can see. But on the roster right now, let's say that nobody comes in, then we're starting 2024 with Brown, with Kienholz, and with Air Nolan coming in. Now, what kind of room do you think that is? How do you? We don't know anything about Air Nolan. I've seen him play in high school. Doesn't matter what he looks like in high school, like, you know, whatever. But as far as Brown and Kienholz, and I think that Ohio State fans really overestimate Air Nolan. I think Air Nolan's a nice prospect. I have watched quite a bit of his film. I think he's a nice prospect. I think he could end up being a good quarterback. But I don't think by any means like he's this home run. And he's certainly certainly not a kid that's going to like come in and start as a freshman. So this Air Nolan talk, Buckeye fans, I think it's foolish to keep going there. You know, I know you can make the argument that, well, Kienholz is not going to be that far ahead of Nolan because Kienholz only came in the summer. And so he's only got 4 or 5 months on Nolan. Okay, fine. You know, whatever. But Brown's got 2 years on him. So I just don't think that you're going to be talking about Air Nolan starting. So what do you think about these guys, Brown and Kienholz?
Well, Devin Brown, a little bit we saw from him. I mean, he appears he throws a nice deep ball, but that's it. He can't throw he doesn't have any touch on the intermediate or short passes. So, I mean, it's very, very small sample size. But in those small sample sizes, I wasn't very impressed. And then he was labeled as like a solid athlete, and maybe he is, but he doesn't look like it when he runs in the open field, especially when Youngstown State's linebackers are able to hawk him down like that, and he can't make a move on them in the open field. I would say that those are some major red flags there. So I just don't see it from him. That's not to say he's maybe going to step it up a level since he has the confidence and he's not thinking as much in the bowl game, because it's like, well, Kyle McCord is not only on the bench, but he's off of the team. So maybe he has a boost in confidence there. We can only hope. But at the same time, we just don't know. But I can tell you this about Kienholz. When I saw him play in the All-American game a year ago in San Antonio, when I said that I saw Devin Brown play in that same game a year prior, and I was like, not quite sold on him. He didn't really show me anything in that game. Kienholz did. Kienholz showed me a lot. And I've said that I believe Lincoln Kienholz is the most talented quarterback on the roster. He just wasn't going to play as a true freshman. True freshmen don't play under Ryan Day. They don't. And it's hurting recruiting too, by the way. Kienholz is the complete package from what I saw. He's not small at 6'2", not the ideal size, like at 6'3" and above, 6'4", but he's not small either at 6'2". But he can run and run pretty well, run better than Devin Brown, that's for sure. And he's got a gun, man. He's got a gun and throws a good accuracy. Again, there was the East team absolutely blew out the West team in the All-American Bowl last year, but the only touchdowns for the West came off of Kienholz and him just scrambling around and making plays. The guy does have the it factor. He's a gamer, and I believe if you start coaching up the little nuances, he could be a great quarterback for Ohio State. I'm not kidding when I say that. I really do believe in him.
I think both of the guys are more gamers than Kyle. And what I mean by that is I think that, the sample size was really small with Brown. And I get that he didn't look that good on some of his passes. I think he was really nervous. It's a tough situation to come in and play like that. What we did find out is that he is not an electric athlete. Okay. So I think that that was a misconception. I do think, and it was just a misconception because nobody knew. Like all we were doing is hearing rumors. None of the fans had seen it. But once we saw it, like he's certainly not an elite level athlete. But what I do think he has that McCord doesn't is I think he has better pocket awareness, and that he can kind of maneuver and get out of the pocket and buy himself a little bit of time. I do think he kind of has a little bit of that escapability. And I think that, an example, and again, I'm using examples. I am not comparing him to this player. I'm just giving an example. The way that Joe Burrow is not what you would consider like a really elite athlete, like a high end, runner or anything, but he's got this ability to escape and kind of like this quickness with his feet to get within the pocket. And I think Brown has a little bit of that. So I'm interested to see, if he can display that against Missouri, against a pretty good, defense on a top 10 type team. And then Kienholz, I'm really excited about. I just don't know. My big concern for Kienholz is, where is he going to fall in this pecking order? Is it going to all land right with him? Because, it would be a stretch for him to be ready by next year. I know he'd be a redshirt freshman, but we have to, kind of consider that this guy came out of the Dakotas. What was it? North Dakota?
South Dakota.
South Dakota? Okay, yeah, whatever. The Dakotas. Nothing against the Dakotas, okay? Great rugged country out there. Love that rugged part of the country. So nothing against the Dakotas, but let's be real, it's not great football. I was looking up, trying to find Jay, because I thought we might discuss Lincoln Kienholz tonight. I was trying to look up to see, do you know that he's the second player in the last decade from the state of South Dakota that has been in the 247 list composite? Second in the last decade. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, he did not face high level competition in high school. So this is like an extreme jump for him. I believe he is the type of athlete that can play at Ohio State because of his athleticism, because of his arm, because of that kind of confidence and swagger and kind of it factor that he carries himself with. I just, I don't want to see him get stuck behind somebody and then not get his chance like Burrow. It would an ideal situation, and I don't know that this is going to happen, but an ideal situation would be if somebody played quarterback next year, went on to the NFL, and then Lincoln came up and was able to play his redshirt sophomore and redshirt junior year and potentially be a 2-year starter. That might cause Air Nolan to transfer, but who cares? I am on the I am much more bullish on the potential of Lincoln Kienholz than I am Air Nolan. It's not that I'm down on Air Nolan. I just
he didn't have the season he had last season, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's a good player, so I don't want to draw any judgments about it right now. But I'm more excited about Kienholz. But yet,
absolutely, I think he's more talented.
The Buckeye fan base is the exact opposite. Everybody is like talking about Nolan, acting like Kienholz doesn't.
They just see that he's a 5-star, and I don't blame him for that, because let's be real, 5 stars that the teams with the most 5 stars win. But yeah. I mean, there are exceptions. There are some 5 stars that just don't work out. Most do, though. Most do. I mean, you have a higher hit percentage on 5 stars than any of the other stars. That's for sure. So people ripping on, 5 stars are overrated. No, they're not. Yeah. You get more 5 stars, you're going to win. Look at Alabama. Look at Georgia. It's not hard to figure out. But yeah, man, back on Kienholz, I would agree with you with everything except that he did show that he can make that adjustment in the All-American game. I mean, he had a week of practice with that kind of talent, and you see him out there doing what he was doing, making some spectacular plays. Like, I don't think the jump in talent was all that much for him, man. And he's had an entire season a half season. He didn't come to Ohio State, I believe, until
I would feel a lot better about it, his chances of being ready to start next year as a redshirt freshman, if he would have come at the break last year. Yeah. If he would have had all of spring football.
Yeah. I get what you mean.
Yeah.
Well, some kids want to enjoy high school. I'm never going to blame them for that. It makes me actually surprised how many kids enroll early, though. But Back to the transfer portal, though. Michael,
Mm-hmm.
where are all of the big fish in the portal for Ohio State? I don't really see Ohio State attached to any of the big names, such as Levius Overton, Walter Nolan, or Chase Bissonis, players that would be immediate contributors at absolute positions of need. And I don't really see Ohio State attached to any of them, at least attached in the way of securing official visits. The only Ohio State caliber guy I see is Trey Jackson from UT San Antonio. But let's be real, that's going to be a losing battle considering he's from Texas and is already getting predicted to attend there. Number one, that makes me believe that, you know, the NIL money may not be there, but then you have last season and you see us getting Tyrone Malone and Davison McBenosen and, you know, Jahad Carter from Syracuse. Like, we had great success in the transfer portal last season. Like, what's going on right now? The best players that are, you know, in the transfer portal are usually entering right now, and Ohio State's not securing visits with any of them. And that's a major red flag considering we have immediate need for defensive end, defensive tackle, and offensive tackle, which those three players, actually four players, provide. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that it's clear to me that for whatever reason, we're just not going after those guys. We're not a player for the big edge guys that are out there. I don't know if it's because of a money issue or if it's because of a culture issue. If Ryan Day's taking the position that he doesn't want to develop a culture of free agents where a big time, maybe first or second round draft pick defensive end could come in and get $500,000 to come play for a season. Maybe he is making the case that that's not good for the team culture. Maybe he's not making that case. Maybe they're just sitting on their ass. I don't know. But you know, what is clear is that they are not, heavily pursuing any of these guys that could make an impact on their team. I'll try and give Ryan Day the benefit of the doubt that maybe he has his reasons. And at Ohio State, I want to think that those reasons aren't, we don't have enough money, because I'm tired of hearing that. I'm tired of hearing that excuse of we don't have the money to go after these guys. Then, this is year 3. This has been going on. This is the 3rd recruiting cycle that you've been able to pay players. It's time to have it figured out by now. It's time to not say, it's a money thing. Well, you know what? How much is a national championship worth? It's becoming like professional sports in that how much is a Super Bowl worth? If you win a Super Bowl, the value that your team will probably go up by a minimum of $350 to $500 million. A Super Bowl is worth $500 million, Jay. How much is a World Series worth? Something similar. These things are massive. How much is a national championship worth today? It's worth a heck of a lot. Ask University of Alabama how much football national championships are worth, because Alabama has become one of the hottest out-of-state schools in the nation. People from all over the country going to Alabama. And I can tell you it is 100% because the brand of the football team. Because when I was coming out of high school in the 90s, when Alabama was going through their desert years, nobody was going to University of Alabama. University of Alabama was an afterthought nationally. It is the football national championships that have brought it to the forefront. So I would ask Ohio State administration and those that can help organize the NIL and these various functions to get these players, how much is it worth? I think it's worth more than the NIL effort that we have seen thus far, because it's like we're always just a little bit behind that curve.
What is the old adage? You got to spend money to make money.
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, speaking of championships and stuff, I did see that the Columbus Crew won the MLS whatever cup thing. Yay!
There we go.
All right. For all of our soccer fans out there, I couldn't care less about soccer. I think it's a terrible sport, but I mean, if the team's going to win it, I guess it's good for them. I guess.
I guess there was 2 Ohio teams in the semifinals because the Cincinnati team was in the semifinals as well. Obviously, they didn't end up winning.
Yeah, they lost to the Crew, I think I read, right?
So they went to the championship and lost to – okay. Well, everybody here will be bummed. I went to one Cincinnati FC game. I hated it, and I'll never go back unless –
Why in the fucking hell did you go to see that garbage?
I was invited. It was free, and
Did you even know what was going on? I watch soccer. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. This is so boring. I don't know what's more boring. Soccer, NASCAR, golf, they all suck.
No, I didn't know what was going on. I mean,
no, I have no idea. Are you a golfer, man? Do you golf?
No.
I don't golf either, man. Me and Michael, man, we actually do things that actually require like physical ability, man. We're both like, I know we don't look like it, but we don't both practice mixed martial arts. So it's both hobbies of ours. So one of these days we will have an MMA like podcast though. Anywho, back on topic. We did host a Michigan State defensive tackle over the weekend. Were you aware of that?
I was not aware of that. Tell me about it.
Well, in my mind, I'm like, what? Who is this guy? The only thing is I can remember, let's all remember how bad Michigan State was. This guy, I don't even remember his name, but I wrote down his stats: 16 tackles and just 1.5 sacks on the season.
Okay.
Yay!
All right. So what year is he?
He's a sophomore. I think he's a redshirt sophomore. I'm just so excited I can't contain myself.
All right. Well, I will take the optimistic end of this. Maybe he was a young guy on a bad team with, just kind of bad, mojo and culture that set in after Tucker got fired. And maybe he just kind of got lost in it, but he still, he was out there and young guy, he's just second-year guy, and he still contributed. So maybe there's something there. Maybe he's kind of a diamond in
Ohio State should not be going after diamonds in the rough or people that are unknown. They need to be going after the guys that are the best players out there who are all SEC, or if you're going for like a smaller player, like a smaller division player, those type of players need to be the best players, not on their team, but in the conference. I don't want a guy who is on Michigan State who is just a solid player for them. Like, what is that going to do? I don't remember him ever sticking out against Ohio State or Michigan. I think both teams just ran them the fuck over. Both games.
This is where Ohio State is on the brink of
completely losing their status. They're losing their status is what I don't think they're
of not maximizing themselves. Is I think that when you are in this new world of college football, in order to not have down seasons, you're going to have to be willing to go after some of these guys. I mean, for example, like Ohio State should have a leg up on so many of the teams across the country. And that's what we all thought when NIL was introduced. We thought this is going to be great for Ohio State. It's going to improve Ohio State's chances. They're in a major metropolitan city. Unlike a lot of these schools that are in small college towns, there's going to be a lot more opportunity for sponsorship and endorsements for these kids. And it's going to be and it's been the opposite of that because it wasn't that traditional sponsorship. It's been these NIL collectives and all of this sly stuff that the SEC, the Southeastern Conference, found loopholes around it. And we just haven't adjusted to it as well as we should. Nick Saban, he'll get in front of the cameras and he'll talk about how much he hates NIL, but yet they have a whole freaking multi-million-dollar center devoted to NIL and have one of the best NIL programs in the country. So,
two things can be true at once, man. He knows that NIL sucks and he hates it, but that doesn't mean he's not going to use it and wield it.
Exactly, because you don't have any other choice.
No.
We have been, I do think we were pretty successful in the transfer portal last year.
Yeah.
Even though only one of those guys ended up really making much of an impact.
Jahad Carter got hurt, man. So
Carter got hurt, and Malone just never really saw the feel for whatever.
It doesn't make any sense.
Hopefully he will this year. Hopefully he'll step up this year. That would, maybe he'll be ready to go. But so far this year, not a lot going on in the transfer portal.
Not at all, man.
I mean, here's the thing, Jay. With the offensive line that I saw, Why are we not going out and seeing what the best guard, what the best center, what the best tackle, any offensive lineman that is of high quality, that's of high value to this team. This offensive line needs to be improved.
Well, Chase Bissonis is that guy. Chase Bissonis from Texas A&M. I guess he was a freshman All-American at offensive tackle for them. Why aren't we securing like an immediate visit with that guy? I mean, he had interest and visited Ohio State out of high school, and we're kind of on his radar from what I understand, but like he's already scheduled visits to places, and Ohio State's not one of them.
Well, you know what? There has to
try. You fucking suck, dude. You suck at your job.
There has
I forgot to say that last week.
You know, I've heard this thing about culture, about, well, you're going to mess up the culture of a locker room if you've got this guy over here who's a third or fourth year guy and he's just hanging on and he gets to play special teams, and you've got this other guy that, you know, gets to start or play some but only makes, you know, 75, 80,000 in NIL, and then you bring in this free agent offensive tackle, we'll say, and you pay him $400,000 to come in for every year that he comes in and stays. Well, you know what? This is an open market now, and this is the ugly part of capitalism. Is it hurts people's feelings because there's a supply and there's a demand, and I get it that when you put this type of element in college sports, it's ugly. But this is the landscape that we live in. Your grandparents and your dad's Big Ten is gone. It's never coming back. It might be sad, but it doesn't matter how sad it makes us. It's gone and it's never coming back. This is the new frontier. This is where we are. And you either adapt and you thrive in this environment, or you are no longer going to be one of the top 3 or 4 programs like you have been for the last 20 plus years.
Couldn't agree more, man. I mean, honestly, I have really nothing to add to that. I just want to point out that we're also supposedly after like a safety from Oregon State. And yeah, was he a solid player for Oregon State? Sure. I mean, his stats say that, but that doesn't mean he's Ohio State caliber. Like, he's only 5'11", so he doesn't have the size or length you want in a safety. Akili Arnold is the name. Just, I don't know, like that right there is a red flag. Like, we shouldn't be going after guys like that. Yeah, a solid player from Oregon State is not an Ohio State starting safety caliber. Like, go get that's a guy that was not only like not a solid player for Oregon State, but if he played for Oregon State when it's like first or second team All Pac-10, those are the guys you get. Like Davis and Igbinosun last year was a freshman All-American.
You know the way I see it, Jay. If I'm in line as an offensive tackle at Ohio State, I think I've got a shot to play, and I'm getting $30,000 a year NIL, and they bring in some guy from wherever, Texas A&M, and they pay him $400,000 a year. You know what I'm going to do? I am going to do everything within my power to take it out on the coaching staff and let them know exactly how wrong they were to bring somebody else in over me. And at the end of the day, will it win out? You don't know. But what it will do is that guy that you brought in, he's not going to be able to just roll in and you know, he's going to have somebody chomping at the bit, nipping at his heels, going at him. And that's the way it is. You know, they talk about the Patriot way. And unfortunately, this type of dog eat dog mentality is now going to have to be in college football. You know, I listened to a guy, Jay, and he'd played for the Patriots, the Bengals, and Dallas. And the guy asked him, they said, is there really that big of a difference? He said, yeah, there's that big of a difference. He said, in New England, he was a wide receiver. He said, in New England, he said, there was 8 of us in the wide receiver room, or 9 of us or something early in the year. He said, and the wide receiver coach would come in. He said, and this is what Belichick, this is the type of atmosphere he set up. The wide receiver coach would come in and he would say, there's 9 of you guys in here. 5 of you guys get to stay. Go out there on the field and show which 5 it is today. And it was fierce competition. And he said it was that type of fierce competition all the way across the board that created teams that just didn't break. Teams that were down 28-3 in the Super Bowl and come back and win, you know? And so And Nick Saban's teams have a certain element of that. His teams are very, very difficult to knock out like that. And I think it's because he fosters very intense competition. And I hope we're doing that. I hope we're moving that direction.
No, I don't think we are. But I mean, you can hope all you want, but it's not happening.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Again, that's an interesting story. All I can say to that is iron sharpens iron. That's it. Iron sharpens iron, man. Harsh competition breeds success. But again, lack of transfer portal news, par for the course, just trash by these coaches. A lot of them are kind of trash coaches, although in my opinion, we had a successful transfer portal acquisitions last offseason. But so there's still time, but it's not looking good. It wasn't looking good this time last season either. So keep that in mind.
Let's say this, Jay. The guys that have done a good job as of late are the defensive guys. I know you're not a fan of Knowles, but we'll take Knowles out of the equation. The other defensive coaches have done pretty good. Outside of, I do think it's probably time for Larry Johnson to start considering his exit. But I mean, the new guys on the defense have at least been solid. They've brought in some good guys, and they got some good, pretty good play out of the secondary for the most part this year. Our offensive,
I don't think I agree with you, man.
You don't think our secondary did pretty well this year?
I think Tim Walton is the only one carrying his weight. I think the rest of the defensive staff blows cock.
Eliano has he not brought it?
Sucks. I think he sucks. I don't think the safeties play all that great. Jordan Hancock is a corner out there. I mean, Josh Proctor was fine, but what did he do against Michigan? Alex Stiles played terrible against Michigan. Bad angles, tackling, all of that. They're not very great in coverage outside of Proctor. They're not recruiting well at the safety position, I can tell you that. They're not recruiting well on defensive line anymore. Linebacker recruiting's not very good either.
Well, that was bringing me to my point is we don't have a linebackers coach. We have Jim Knowles that we all know is a terrible recruiter.
Oh yeah.
And at least you're getting some production out of the secondary guys. You might not like the safeties. I thought the safeties were certainly above average this year. So I'm willing to have a little more patience with him, but I'm out of patience with Parker Fleming. I'm out of patience with having an overloaded coaching staff full of low-level analysts that Ryan Day promoted to be on his staff and get their first job at the Ohio State University. I'm over. I'm out of patience for that.
I agree. I don't know why Parker Fleming's still on the staff. Special teams sucks. Now, there'd be one thing if, the special teams was like top 10 in the nation, but it's one of the bottom 10 in the nation. I don't know where they rank. I know it's pretty pathetic, though. I understand.
Jay,
Go ahead.
We wonder why, the things don't come together for the big games. You've got Corey Dennis at quarterback coach, first job here at Ohio State. You've got Parker Fleming at special teams coach, first job here at Ohio State. You've got Keenan Bailey at tight ends, first job here at Ohio State. You've got Ryan Day, of course, as the head coach. It's his first job here at Ohio State, first head coaching job. And then you've got Tony Offord at the running backs. There's still an Urban holdover, and he's the only one on the offensive side of the ball with any type of experience other than Ryan Day. The rest of them are all newbies. And you've got Brian Hartline at the receivers who recruits really well, but he is the offensive coordinator, first time ever to do such a thing here at Ohio State. I mean, the amount of first-timeisms on this staff on the offensive side of the ball for a place like Ohio State is unbelievable, and nobody's talking about this.
We're talking about it, Michael. We make mention of it all the time that Ryan Day doesn't have the cachet to bring in the elite coaches. He doesn't. That's it. I don't know what else to say. He doesn't have the connections. He doesn't have any head coaching experience.
I forgot one. Justin Fry. This is not his first time, but he was a middle of the road offensive line coach at Boston College and UCLA. That's fine. No problem with that. He comes here, doesn't do anything other than middle of the road as far as recruiting and kind of the whole package. And after 1 year, Ryan Day makes him the highest paid offensive line coach in the country. So it's something that I have a hard time getting past. And then on the defensive side of the ball, we've got 2 defensive back coaches. We've got a defensive line coach, and then we've got a defensive coordinator that's supposed to be coaching the linebackers who can't recruit a lick. And then we've got James Laurinaitis that's supposed to be cutting the slack from a GA position. And again, as much in favor as I am about cutting Laurinaitis loose as the linebackers coach, that would still be yet another brand new guy getting his first job at Ohio State. So, we just need some experienced coaches sprinkled in some key places right now that we're very, very badly missing.
Man, I swear, in a perfect world, I'm just waiting for the day for Notre Dame to fire Marcus Freeman so then he can come in and be Ohio State's defensive coordinator. And scheme-wise, I don't think Freeman's the best. I think he's just solid, maybe, but he's a hell of a recruiter, though. He's an elite recruiter. So you automatically bring in a guy who's an elite recruiter to Ohio State on the defensive side of the ball. And you have Laurinaitis coaching the linebackers, and then you have Marcus Freeman over the whole defense. And wow, that would be all of a sudden a hell of a defensive recruiting staff there.
Yeah,
but that's in la la land. I don't think that will ever happen. But I was really, really hoping.
Freeman may get fired at Notre Dame because I think it's relatively clear he's a little bit in over his head.
Yeah, he absolutely is. I actually personally do like Marcus Freeman. Hate Notre Dame, but I do like Marcus Freeman.
Yeah.
Speaking of Nick Saban, man, it's kind of an off-topic thing, but I noticed like Caleb Downs started at safety for them all year. Do you think Caleb Downs would have started at safety for Ohio State?
I don't know. I don't know enough about Caleb Downs, to be honest with you.
I think he's a freshman All-American. He's a freshman All-American in Alabama. So
well, then, I think he would have started at Ohio State.
I don't think he would have.
You don't?
I think he would have been on the bench. And I think that's a big reason why Ohio State's starting to struggle some in recruiting.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, no. Do I think he – okay. I misunderstood the question. I get what you're saying. Yes, I think he would have had the ability to start.
Oh, we know he has the ability, but would he have actually started?
Oh, yes. No, I agree. Probably not, because we don't play we don't play young guys. I mean, you've got a 5-star linebacker, and we've got 2 mediocre linebackers that we watched for the last 2 years. You've got a 5-star sophomore linebacker that never saw the field. Top 30 player, top 20 player in the country.
Freak athlete.
Everything that you look for in a linebacker in a 4-2-5 system, and didn't even see the field. I mean, didn't even see the field.
That doesn't make any sense, man. But this coaching staff doesn't make any sense. That's why I don't think they're very good, especially on the defensive side of the ball. The offense is overrated, but defensive staff, I don't think they really have much of a clue. Supposedly, there's in-house fighting. I don't know.
A lot of people have made a point, and there probably is some legitimacy to it, is that when Jim Harbaugh really started to turn things around at Michigan is when he started to get a pipeline of high-quality coaches, and his brother had some connections with some certain guys that he was able to bring in, guys that were high-quality guys that had some success in the NFL. And we are in need of a high-level coaching staff, because for the money that we are spending at Ohio State right now on our coaching staff, we are absolutely being robbed.
Hell yeah, we are. Hell yes, we are. Hell yeah, man. It's man, oh man, oh man. But continuing on my point, I don't think Caleb Downs would play here, and I think, supposedly there were tweets by Kenyatta Jackson just pissed off with his role on the team and not playing as much. Trust me, those transfers and those high school seniors out there, they notice that Ohio State doesn't play their young players. Not really, not at all. Jermaine Matthews didn't even play against Michigan. I don't even think he recorded a snap on the defensive side of the ball. So they see it.
I was looking in some of our past recruiting classes, and Jackson being one of them. Mm-hmm. We have a few of those highly rated edge guys that we've gotten. Have none of them panned out? Are they like Ofer? Like none of them can contribute? Because there's Jackson and there's a couple of others that we're
Jaden Curry.
Yeah, and then the kid that we got who was going to go to LSU.
Oh yeah, Joshua Mickens.
Yeah. So there's
from Indianapolis.
So there's 3 guys there. And I mean, we hadn't seen anything out of any of them. I get that you have Tuimoloau and Sawyer, but it's just like
they're not speed guys. The problem with Sawyer and Tuimoloau, and I said it before the Michigan game, Michigan's offensive tackles aren't their strength supposedly, but it wouldn't matter with Ohio State because Ohio State's defensive ends aren't speed rushers. Michigan struggles with the speed rushing from Penn State, but Ohio State, they don't have those types of players on their defense, and I was laughed at for that. Well, I don't think Ohio State really got any pressure from the defensive end position.
Kenyatta Jackson, does he have that? Do you think? I mean, I don't know. I've seen
he has more than the other guys. I don't know if he's like an explosive rusher, but we need to see more of him though.
Yeah.
Because Tuimoloau and Sawyer aren't getting it done. And by the way, I do remember when they tried to credit Jack Sawyer for that sack on J.J. McCarthy in that Michigan game. That was all Michael Hall. He did all of that. Jack Sawyer just cleaned it up at the end. Jack Sawyer didn't do jack shit in that game. But anywho, moving on, closing out this podcast, everyone. Speaking of the transfer portal, lastly, in our transfer portal woes, but we'll move past Ohio State's woes there. When I was in Columbia yesterday, after the Christmas party, I spoke to a player visiting
Columbia, South Carolina.
Yeah, Columbia, South Carolina. I spoke to a player visiting South Carolina because I was literally right down the street from the university at the hotel. And I asked him some like questions and stuff. I really did ask him about like players being paid up front. I'm like, literally, I was like, dude, what's the deal? Are players getting paid up front? And he honestly said players aren't offered money like you think they are up front, but it does happen, but not in the amount that we're leading on to. Now, granted, this player was coming from a college that had a solid. I'm not about to say who he is or where he's playing from. I'm not about to out the guy like that. But he did say, the college he came from had some people that were some like high profile possible transfers last year. And I don't even know if he would be privy to their personal lives and what they're offered money wise, but players really aren't offered money up front like that. At South Carolina, he was basically telling me that the coaches were just sitting down with them and speaking to them on how they would fit in and that they wanted them and this, that, and the other. But he did make it very clear to me that tampering is in fact going on. It is absolutely going on. Coaches are reaching out to these kids prior to them even entering into the transfer portal, Michael. They are reaching out. Absolutely. He knew some guys right off the bat that, they were thinking about going to the transfer portal, and then they were convinced by such and such college or such and such coach to enter the portal. And that's the world we live in now, man. That's it.
So some of these stories of guys getting $1 million and $350,000 and all these things are probably highly exaggerated. Like that might happen like very few and far between.
Well, again, have you ever seen actual proof of any of this stuff? Like,
no,
I would actually need to see like real proof of this. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure these guys are getting money, but I need to see like evidence.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. I need to see evidence. I need to see it. I need to see somebody busted for. I don't know. Not that it's even illegal. So I guess you're never going to know.
I mean, I've been told, I've heard from credible sources, for instance, that Ohio State, they begin to give their guys kind of like a little base once they've been around for a year or so. And that Michigan has like a $35,000 base that each guy once they're in the program gets kind of like $35,000. So are there guys that are getting 135,000 or 235,000? I don't know. Obviously, once you get in the program, if a car dealership wants to pay you 50 grand, they can do whatever they want. But we're talking about the collective money, the NIL collective money that is basically funneled, it's not ran by the universities because of technicality, but it's ran in partnership with the university. And that's the money we're talking about. If Rolex or if Tag Heuer or if Maserati would have wanted to sign Marv after the Maserati Marv comment by Gus Johnson, they could have paid him however much they wanted to pay him. That's all fair game. But we're talking about the average recruit that hasn't proved anything yet, coming from high school, getting promises from these NIL collectives at, you name the school, for X amount of money. And the guy that you spoke to said it's not as much as we think it is, or it's kind of exaggerated in the way that it's reported. Is that what you understood?
Is.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Really cool guy. I wish him all the success if he actually does go to South Carolina, though. So, yeah, man. Crazy world we live in, though. Ohio State needs to figure it out, man. In the transfer portal, they need to be going and getting these guys. And I mean, like, I don't know if they do need to pay money up front, find a way to do it and get these guys here. There's no reason that these guys should be out in the white space and not being procured by Ohio State. It just doesn't make any sense. So I don't have anything else to add, Michael. Do you, sir?
No, I don't.
Oh, I was going to add one thing. Columbia, South Carolina is a dump, by the way. Have you ever been there?
Yes.
Okay. Do you agree with my statement?
Absolutely. 100%.
I'm like, what the fuck is the appeal of going here? I understand.
Don't know it at all.
Like more humid down there. It's old. There's not a lot to do. I will say this.
It's not nice at all.
I would still choose the University of South Carolina over Clemson because Clemson is out in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Yeah.
Nothing to do.
Yeah.
Greenville is about 45 minutes away from Clemson. That's a nice, solid-sized city. But do you really want to drive 45 minutes to civilization? I don't.
No, I wouldn't.
In an urban area.
Wouldn't want to go to either one of them. So that would be
absolutely not. If I had to choose, I would choose South Carolina.
Right.
But the point is, most of the colleges in the Southeast, everyone. I know this. We have this is an Ohio State podcast, and we appeal more to the Big Ten and the Midwest. But let me tell you. Being a resident in the Southeast, and Michael, you've lived in Atlanta. I've spent a lot of time in Atlanta. I've traveled all over the Southeast because I live in the Southeast. The South, I've been past like in the Auburn area. There is nothing to a lot of these colleges. There's nothing there. So
Auburn's another area that's kind of gross. Not real nice.
I've never actually been there, but I've been very, very close to it. I'm like, there's nothing out here. Yep. Why in the hell do kids go to these places? Why?
Mississippi State, Jay, you're driving down the road like in the middle of nowhere and you look over and there's Mississippi State. Like literally in the middle of nowhere. Yeah.
Man, I mean, hell, freaking Gainesville, Florida is out in the middle of nowhere, man.
And it's a big city it's a big city compared to Oxford, compared to Starkville, compared to some of these other places.
Tuscaloosa, I've heard, is a dump. I've never been there, but I will visit there. I swear to God, Georgia Tech, man, like Athens, Georgia was cool. I liked Athens, Georgia. That was a cool place.
Yeah, it's somewhat charming, but no, Tuscaloosa is not very nice either.
You've been there?
Yeah, I've been to all of them. Baton Rouge, you name it.
Oh, that's right, man. You freaking played. What
am
I thinking? Yeah, I just don't see it, man. The SEC gets it done. Like I said, I saw somebody in the comments make a comment. We need to go in to break it down how the SEC is just better than the Big Ten and recruits better. We will analyze that one day when we're bigger and YouTube can't cancel us.
We'll do it. There's ways we can do it. That's a good subject topic.
That is. That's an off-season topic, though, not right now, because the season still is going on.
All right, Jay.
So, yeah. Have a good night, everyone, or actually a good morning, that is. Like, subscribe. Hopefully you enjoyed this podcast. If you hated it, please let us know. Let us know how we suck.
All right. See you guys next time.